All right. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We are glad to have you here tonight on this Tuesday night. If you happen to be watching on YouTube live with us, you'll notice this amazing hat that I have on my head, encouraging everyone to vote. Voting is also very important. It's extremely important. We will have the chat live today. But yes, tonight. I'm Dev, by the way, in case you haven't noticed. These intros are things I'm still getting used to. But anyway, today we're going to be diving into the smokescreen conversations that have distracted us from the real issues of this wild election season. It has been a whirlwind. And so we're going to get into it tonight. You are listening to Logic and Reason.
You're listening to Logic and Reason, the podcast, where we don't just report on news and policy. We dissect it, challenge it, and bring you the insights that matter.
Indeed. For those of you who are joining on YouTube, welcome in. Catching us later on Apple Podcasts and other platforms, thanks for tuning in. Mel is hanging out in the live chat. So if you guys have any questions, this is going to be... I'm going to try to make this interactive. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, we will be monitoring the chat tonight. And also, as a quick reminder, Mel usually makes me remind everyone to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. All right, so let's get into it. This election has been hands down one of the craziest I've ever seen. I mean, this has been pretty nuts. We got Trump winning the Republican nomination without participating in any debates. Joe Biden struggled through his one debate that he was in, before dropping out of the race. Kamala Harris, had record-breaking, fundraisers, but has somehow avoided solo interviews. And then we saw endorsements for Trump from RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. The debates themselves, unhinged. And let's not forget, Trump got shot. This entire process has turned our democratic process into some type of political theater, just for entertainment. And honestly, I'm exhausted. I don't know about you guys, but this has been an absolute, with a lack of a better word, an S show. I know we have to keep the show clean because we're labeled as clean on Apple Podcasts, so I can't use any swear words. But it's been an absolute crazy hot mess. But I don't know. What are you guys take on it? I know Mel's in the chat. She said, "Let's go." Let me actually go ahead and shout out Mel. But yes, I think we're all feeling a sense of frustration. Our process has essentially become a joke after this whole process. The Pew Research study showed that 64% of Americans believe that misinformation severely impacts the trust in government. And so no wonder we feel disillusioned. And so we want to talk about these things. I know in more recent times, we had our lovely orange friend and his colleague discuss some interesting things in recent days. If you guys watched the debate, you would have seen that there was a moment where he mentioned that Haitian immigrants were eating cats and dogs. And when I first heard it, for one, it happened so fast that I didn't have time to search it. I know we did a live coverage of the debate. I know some may have like, you didn't make any comment. Well, part of the reason why is because I was trying to Google. I was like, what is it? What is this? Because I never heard of that before. So after some time, I wanted to kind of make an adjustment to that because I wasn't able to do so live. Let me take this off. So let's address this claim. So this is taking place allegedly in Springfield, Ohio. To be, just real direct, this is false. There's no basis on this. The rumor started from a Facebook post where someone claimed that their neighbor saw a Haitian immigrant butchering a cat in the yard. But the local authorities have debunked it. There's no evidence. There's no reports. It's just essentially a bunch of hearsay. And we've talked about this before in a previous video when we did the breaking down the statements behind Trump and the facts behind Trump. And we said in that video that this man gets his news from social media, which a lot of people get their news from social media. But you're supposed to be a person that has access to information. And you're supposed to be, at one point, you were the president of the United States. And we saw during his presidency that he would regularly get his news from Fox News and start repeating and regurgitating things that he heard on Fox News in press releases and press conferences. And I was like, this is such an unorthodox behavior from a president of the United States. And so it looks like he has not changed behavior on that. It looks like he's following that same formula of seeing something on the internet and being like, yeah, that sounds right, and then running with it. And to be frank, a lot of us have this problem. Too many of us don't spend enough time vetting our information. We just go with the thing that feels right, and we start spreading things as if it's gospel. It's really unfortunate. But what makes this even more damaging is that, like I mentioned earlier with Donald Trump, J.D. Vance was involved. They jumped on this stuff and then started repeating it over and over again in events and interviews. J.D. Vance had an interview of Dana from CNN and was trying to defend his position on this thing. He unfortunately let it slip that he made up, this is what he said. He said that his constituents allegedly told him that these things were happening. He didn't bother actually vetting that information, trying to see if this person was loony or not, because to be quite frank with you, most folks who actually interact with their politician usually are folks that don't have a life. No offense to those people, but I mean, like the folks who actually tune in Commissioner's Court here in Houston, or I guess Harris County would be the larger county. These aren't normal people usually. You either work for government or you are a retiree person who just, is looking to fill your time. And so you listen in on a commissioner's court, but very rarely. I don't. And I used to be involved with commissioner's court all the time back when I used to work for government. But yeah, I don't listen to that anymore. Who has the time for that? It happens at 10 o'clock in the middle of the morning. You're at work. So that right there is a red flag. If somebody's calling you about said thing, you need to go check it out. You can't just take it from face value. But he took it. And then he starts spreading it because he thinks that, oh, if I use this as a means I'm using this as a means to spread awareness to a real issue. And what does that sound like, y'all? That sounds like Jussie Smollett. Y'all remember? Smollett was talking about how, gay people are really being persecuted and attacked out here. And instead of actually using a real case, he decided to hire some dudes to attack him and then, make this giant news story. And everyone was like, oh, this is crazy. And then we ended up finding out that it wasn't real. That's the problem here. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. Let me know in the chat. Does disinformation like this make you lose trust in politicians? And, just to kind of help start things up, I never really had trust in politicians. Some are good people. I've met some legit folks, and some people are not so legit. And I think, part of it is just the nature of the position. You have to be a very confident individual to run for office. And, the seat of power is very enticing to narcissists. And so this is where it makes it very difficult to have normal people in these spaces, just because normal people don't really go after seats of power like that. Some people do because they're very motivated. Like, I know some folks, either a child died because of a shooting or something real happened to them, and then they use this as a motivating factor to be like, well, this is going to be my life mission now. I'm going to push this said policy because this impacted me personally. That person I'm not talking about. It's the other person that, from a young age, they loved being in front of people. They loved talking in front of people. They were sometimes popular kids in school. These are folks who have always had attention around them, and they love attention and they thrive off of it. Trump reminds me of individuals like this who, they love the spotlight. They love the attention. They love what comes with being a somebody and, being able to make moves and kind of make things move. That is, that's attractive. So let me know what you're Mel, let me know. Has any of this shaken your trust in politicians? I would love to hear your answer in the chat. While we wait on that, there was a study that came out from MIT, and they said that fake news and false news spreads 70% faster than truth, especially when it's stirred up with the emotion of fear and anger. So really, there's no surprise here that this rumor blew up. And when social media influencers and politicians are involved, it becomes almost impossible to pull the facts back. So, people love fantasy. People love sensationalism. It's attractive. It's interesting. Oh, Mel has a comment. Let's see what she says here. And for some reason, I can't use my computer. My trust was shaken after meeting them up close. Yeah, I will have to second you on that one. I think seeing the sausage made changed my perspective on things. I think if I didn't have my experience, I probably would not think the way I think, which saying that out loud makes a lot of sense. That's how most people kind of operate. But broken traditions. Trust a politician. Well, there has to be some level of trust. I mean, what do you base your vote on, right? You have to have some ounce of trust of like, all right, I think this guy is or think this woman's gonna do what they say they're gonna do. I mean, there has to be some level there. I mean, but yes, it makes it very difficult. They make it very challenging to do so. But there has to be some level of trust because there'll be no point in voting. Like essentially, somebody will say something to you and be like, all right, whatever, I don't believe what you have to say. And then you don't vote for anyone, it's because everybody's just lying to you, which that might be the case, but somebody has to do something. Somebody has to be saying some ounce of truth somewhere. I would have to believe. But I also, broken traditions, I'll ask you this question. Have you ever shared something on social media only to find out later that it wasn't true? Especially as a person that has your influence. Has that ever happened to you? Where you said something and then all of a sudden, oh, wait, actually, that wasn't actually accurate. And for other folks, if you have a similar situation, go ahead and type guilty in the chat. Try to make this as interactive as possible. But yeah, it's a tough situation. But let's get into this Haitian thing. So the Haitian community in Springfield has faced some real consequences because of these false claims. There's about roughly 20,000 Haitian immigrants that live in that city. And they've been targeted now because of all this. Schools and public offices have been closed due to bomb threats, which I don't know who's threatening to bomb a school because, well, I can't say that. Because I completely forgot about Pizzagate. Broken traditions. Yeah, I think sometimes it's unavoidable, especially because things move so fast. But to your point right here, this is why he says this is why I take my time creating content now. Yeah, very true. That's kind of, especially as a content creator, it makes it, you do have to do your due diligence, but at the same time, you want to get there when things are hot. There's like this catch-22 in a way. Political G, trust is too strong. I believe them at some point. Yeah, and I think that's kind of my point is there has to be some level of belief. Because, again, what can you base your vote on? I guess maybe trust is too strong of a word. I guess believe would be probably a better word to use. Maybe believe. Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing about it. So as I was saying earlier about the bomb threats, the local authorities have been trying to assure the public that, the story's not true. But essentially at this point, the damage has already been done. And essentially the city now is just trying to focus on doing damage control. And the real problem is the fact that the main guy who's pushing this now is your senator, right? J.D. Vance is a senator of Ohio. So it's like you're fighting against your representative. Like, hey, man, you're making our job hard. And what I was saying earlier, the interesting thing about all this is, on the whole, immigrants generally are less likely to commit crimes than people who are natively born in America. Now, there are specific groups, which I'll get into a little bit later, that have challenged this idea. But on the whole, just broadly speaking, generally that's the case. I think Broken Traditions has another one. It's always a group that is in the crossfire. Now the Haitians, before it was the Latinos, yep. Then it was the Asians, yep. The Muslims, yep. Everyone's had their go. I'm waiting for white people to have their turn. Actually, no, they already had their turn. Charlottesville, when that happened. You can probably tack in January 6th, too. White people had their day in the sun on that. And so, yeah, everyone has their little moment, I guess. And right now it's the Haitians. Although I wouldn't go after the Haitians. The Haitians are a very proud people. I remember I was attending one of my sister-in-law's graduation, and she was graduating with a lot of Haitians, and those people were waving that flag like nobody's business. They were out there getting it. So, yeah, I don't know. That might have been a really, really dangerous move on the Republicans' part. All right, so speaking on other things, let's touch a little bit on the Kamala Harris's race. I know that was something that was brought up during the debate. That was something that was brought up before the debate. I touched on it slightly in the last video that we released with the debate coverage. And so when I look at the different sides of issues, especially when I go on to X and other social media platforms. It looks like the real issue here is whether she is actually black or black enough. Is she culturally black? Right? This really has really nothing to do with her actual makeup, race-wise, genetically. So when people are asking, is she culturally black? Does she represent black people in black culture? And before we get into that point, we probably would need to go into, well, what specifically is black culture, right? And black culture is diverse. Black culture can be African based. It can be Caribbean based. It could be, Southern American based country. It can be West Coast. It can be Brooklyn, Queens, Harlem based. And so there's a lot of different type of black culture, different foods, different tastes in music. You got bounce in the South. You got your West Coast music on the West Coast. So there's a lot of diversity there. But in general, I think most people are talking about some one of those variations of black culture with a black experience. And this conversation came up with Barack Obama when he first came on the scene and was running for president. And he had a little easier time, I would say, than Harris has, just because he had Michelle there, and they have two black girls, daughters, and so it was more of a black family picture, not so much with Harris. But background speaking, it's very similar. He was raised by a white woman and moved around a lot. For Harris, she was raised by an Indian woman, moved around. I don't know if she moved around as much as Obama, but she moved around a lot. She was in California for a bit, moved, I forgot to what other state that she moved to. And then they eventually had to move to Canada, and she was in Canada for a while before she went to college and then went to Howard. And then both of them as adults tried to, I imagine, some type of reconnect with their blackness. With Obama doing community organizing and for her going to an HBCU, joining the AKAs, and, having that experience. But, with all that said, what does that actually, Broken Traditions has something. Let's see what he has here. See what he had to say. She culturally black to me. She reminds me of the rich AKA auntie. Yes. Okay. So he kind of was going where I was going with this. I think she is more of an elite bourgeoisie. And so that's kind of what my take on that is. And Broken Traditions kind of took the words out of my mouth on that. But yeah, I think she is more of a bourgeoisie. I called her an elitist in the last episode. There's different levels to this stuff, right? And I think, the bourgeoisie folks, to be, as illustrative as I can be, it's kind of like that Real Housewives show, The Potomac, where you had all those light-skinned black women and their fancy cars and big houses and, living their best life. And they don't really kind of mingle with other black folk because, and essentially I'm better than them. And so it's kind of the vibe I got looking at her was more of the, I deal with my folk. I don't really deal with everybody. That's kind of, that was my take. But it was used as a means to, I guess, discredit her appeal to black folks. Now, granted, she didn't help herself out. I don't know if y'all have heard, if you want to call that an accent, whatever she was saying, thinking that she was doing in some of her speeches was very disappointing, and it didn't really come off authentic. It definitely came off as pandering or some type of performance. I can't even call it a code switching, because code switching, you still speak normally. Like when I'm talking in a board meeting or something like that, I am more proper in my words. And now, to a certain extent, I'm more proper with my words when I'm doing the show. And when I'm more comfortable, I might use some slang and whatnot. But, that is all organic. It didn't seem like what she was doing was organic. Black scent. I mean, you tell me, man. Like it was weird. Like it wasn't. I don't know. It didn't hit right to me. I just to me. I don't know. Maybe other people saw it and they didn't have any issue, but I don't know what that was. But that was weird to me. But what I kind of said in the other video is none of this stuff really matters. I mean, it only matters to somebody if they were trying to vote for someone based off of just them being black. And maybe even then it doesn't really matter, because as long as you have some type of ancestry, I'll take it, right? For that type of person. I don't know. So, but it doesn't really have any bearing on how she's going to be as a president or anything else like that. And she's already stated in interviews, granted now these interviews are like 4 or 3 years old, but she's already stated in interviews that she's not going to do anything that's specific to black people, right? She already mentioned this. So her being black doesn't mean anything, whether she is or isn't, or both, or all. It's unconsequential. Let me see what we got here. Okay, so Political G said it was weird. I'm saying, I mean, it was just weird. That's all I'm saying. It's just trying to be real with it. And then Broken Tradition said Kamala had a weird black scent and this old school 70s pimp style. Yeah, it was just, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But like I said, I don't think this really has any impact on something. And really, it's just a distraction. I mean, it's if you're going to vote for her, you're going to vote for her. I mean, it is what it is with that. I don't think that really made any difference. To me, I can set that stuff aside and just focus on, policy wise, what she's trying to bring to the table. Whether she's black or not doesn't really mean much. I don't need representation like that. I want people to actually make moves. I'm my own representation. If I need something done, I'm going to go and try to do it myself and maybe bring some people around me to help make that happen. But I don't need somebody to look like me in order for me to get them to work. Like I've gotten stuff from white people. I mean, it's if I need something accomplished, let's hash out a deal. Like let's get it done. Like you don't need to be black for that. It doesn't matter who that person is. And so that's why for me it doesn't matter. But I know for other folks it might. But yeah, I mean I guess you guys have kind of already answered this question, but I was going to ask, do you think the issue is because the Democratic Party has adopted this identity politics viewpoint, that maybe this has become more of a relevant issue, where they come forward with whatever they are physically? Maybe is that the problem? Maybe is this the catalyst for something like this? Maybe that's it, right? I'm black, I'm Mexican, I'm this, I'm that. Before you start saying something, as a black person, yada yada, as a Hispanic woman, yada yada, and then you say whatever it is you want to say. Everyone's identifying with their physical. As a LGBT person, I'm a yada yada yada. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't think that really helps anything. I'm my culture. I wear my culture with me everywhere I go. I don't need to, if y'all ever notice, a lot of the shows, I'm wearing a lot of African stuff. I'm West African. I'm married to a West African. And so, I rock this. This is what I do. I don't really need to identify. I don't need to show up. Hey, everyone, welcome to Logic and Reason. As a black man, I don't need to do that. It's unnecessary. So what does Mel say over here? True, you do like a good deal. I like a good deal. Give me a good deal. 100% facts. I can hash out a deal with the best of them. Give me something. We can work out something. Let's see. Broken Traditions. He was saying, that is my pet peeve when my wife says, as a black woman. I mean, seriously, man, it's a part of vernacular now. Like it's people really talk like that. And it's like, I can see, right? I'm not Stevie Wonder. I have my sight. I can see clearly you are a black woman. Just say what you need to say, right? You don't need to give me the qualifier. Because also, too, here's another reason why I find it annoying, is because it doesn't give what you're saying more weight just because you're a said person. Like, you can have a thought and not be a part of said group. So just because you are a said person doesn't mean that what you're saying outweighs what I'm saying. Just say what you need to say. I'll say what I need to say, and then we come together on that. But we don't need to go into qualifiers. To me, it's a waste of time. But a lot of people talk like that, though. It's very true. All right, so here's one of the other issues that we have. This voter fatigue, I think, is one of the things that is starting to creep in. I know for me it is. 30% of Americans are dissatisfied with both political parties in more recent times, according to Brookings. But we're stuck with these candidates. But a lot of us don't really feel like they represent our values. And I think part of the reason why some folks feel this way is because people have gotten extreme. I know Trump himself is a very extreme character, and in a lot of ways, he's not really Republican. He's Trump, but he's warped the party into whatever you want to call this today. And for the Democratic Party, because for most of my adult life, I've voted Democrat. I think most black people kind of start off that way. But then as time has progressed, it's gotten really out there with some of the ideas. And I'm like, it's kind of extreme. I'm not really a huge fan of extremes. Reason, the whole show is called Logic and Reason. That plays a role in decision making. And I don't like people trying to convince me of ideas simply because they say it loud enough, or they say it with a lot of passion. I want to be able to look up stuff. It's not what it used to be, at least from my perspective on the Democratic Party as a whole. It's not the same party. But because of these extremes, you have a lot of folks being alienated. This is kind of why I said, I'm an independent now, because I was like, I can't ride with all that. But the conversation I've heard from some folks is that they're just not going to vote at all. I had a conversation with somebody last weekend, and we were chatting, catching up, and he was just like, man, I hate both sides. I'm just not even going to participate. And that's unfortunate. Shout outs to the hat that I got on vote. But, this is not the kind of attitude that we need, especially as black folks. We really, there were too many sacrifices that our ancestors have made in order to get us to where we are today. And so for somebody today to be like, I'm not even going to vote, is problematic. Hopefully this guy is just talking about the presidential race, and he is voting in local elections. Hopefully that's the case. I'm not going to speak on that part because I don't know. The conversation didn't go in that direction. I'm hoping that he is just talking about the presidential race. But let's say, for the instance, and for the sake of this conversation, he's not voting altogether. That's a massive problem. It's a massive problem. And so, are y'all planning to vote? I know Broken Traditions, you give me the vibe that you're an active voter, but I could be wrong on that. What is your stance so far? You're voting? You don't need to tell me who. Just actively, are you going to be doing it? Mel, too, you can jump in the chat along with Political G. Political G, you have the name Political G, so I imagine the answer to that question is yes for you. But yeah. Another thing I wanted to touch on is the real immigration issues, and the things that aren't myths. And we touched on this a little bit in a previous video. There are legitimate issues with immigration. Crime happens to be an element. And, we discussed on several occasions, in particular, Venezuelan immigrants, murdering folks. I mean, we recently just had a tragic murder with a 12-year-old girl in Houston by two Venezuelan men. And so, instead of actually for JD Vance and Trump, instead of actually focusing on real stories, you're coming up with this crap, and it has to be a political move, or else you guys are just really dumb. Like, I don't know if you think, oh, it's sensational, it's going to get us publicity and exposure, and any kind of exposure is good, which I disagree with, but I know that is a tactic. But I mean, you really could have just had your message be rooted in truth. There's plenty of stories that you could have taken that happened this year that you could have, said, hey, look, this is the reason why we think this is because of all these different things that are happening. Let me get you guys' chats. So Broken Tradition says, I feel the same way. I'm not voting for the president. However, I'm voting locally. Yeah, I think, I don't think you're alone on that, especially from the conversation I had with my friend. But you said you've been voting this. So are you saying that you've been not voting for president since 2016? Just to clarify. And then Political G says, yeah. Yeah, Broken Tradition, let me know. Just so I understand what you're saying. I don't want to misquote you. So, I do want to get you guys' thoughts on what would be a way forward for handling these real immigration issues. Or do you even think there is an immigration issue? Obviously, from the impression I get from Kamala Harris' side, it doesn't seem like she thinks there is that big of a problem. We have seen influxes. I know there's a lot of things going on around the world, and it's not just the U.S. Europe has had, in recent time, a lot of issue with immigration and having to turn down immigrants. I know some folks who are fleeing from Gaza and Syria and some of those other areas on the western part of the Middle East were trying to go through Turkey in order to get to different European countries. And, they've been even pushed away from Turkey, right? No one wants to house these folks. And so, there's a lot of turmoil happening. Sudan had issues. Somalia had issues being ran by warlords. Again, Venezuela had issues with their government. And so there's a lot of issues going on that are causing a lot of people to want to flee these countries. I heard from somebody that Harris allegedly, in the years prior, have been, when she, as vice president, has been visiting different countries in South America to try to advise them on policies that would help improve their economy, so it prevents people from wanting to flee. I haven't looked into that, so I don't know if that's true or not. But if that's the case, that's good. That's something that she should have brought up during the debate. I know a lot of my complaint with the debate was the fact that the moderators did not really force her to answer the questions. I thought they had good questions, but they didn't really force her to answer them. But that's something that she should have brought up if challenged. She said, hey, look, as far as immigration is concerned, I've been going to different countries, yada, 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 whatever it was you were doing. If that's real, I think people should know that. I think that would change people's opinions on, how seriously you really take immigration. But yeah, I don't know if just deporting people is the solution alone. Maybe deportations are a part of a bigger strategy that should be created. But I do know that as long as we're having constant issues and fighting in all these different countries, you're going to have people wanting to flee. And America has played a role into the destruction of a lot of these countries. Let's not forget that, particularly in the Middle East, a lot of those people are using American weapons to kill each other. And so, we have a responsibility in that aspect as far as helping with the destruction of these regions. And so, I don't know what the solution is, but I do know that a solution does need to be made. I think I see some things in the chat. Yep. Mel was like, for real? Since 2016? And he's like, yeah, it is what it is. Last president I voted for was Obama. Yep. I voted for, who did I vote for in the last election? I think I voted for Mickey Mouse in the last presidential election. I did vote in the primary, and in the primary, I was more interested in Andrew Yang, but he didn't win the nomination. But I thought Andrew Yang had some decent ideas, and he was really the only candidate that was looking forward in the future. He was trying to see, like, if all these different advancements, it's really funny. The things that he was mentioning in that primary are happening now, right? Like AI, robots taking over most of Amazon's warehouses, the things that he was introducing, say, hey, look, there's going to be a job shortage because eventually folks are going to be replaced by robots. I don't know if maybe he had an insight into what was going to be released as far as Chat GPT. We're in the very still beginning stages of Chat, but I imagine Chat's going to have a massive impact as well. Mel, she says presidential politics has been so wild post Obama. I agree with you on that one as well. It has gotten nuts, and I have to blame that on Trump. Because John McCain was a sane person. You could disagree with his politics, but the man was sane. Mitt Romney was sane. Trump is the first time that we have a crazy person running for president. It wasn't as dramatic as this. If you go through the history of people running for president, people thought that George Bush was kind of crazy because he would say jokes and stuff, and people questioned his intelligence. But I mean, George Bush would run laps around Trump. I mean, that's if we were clowning George Bush back in the early 2000s. I mean, I would love to have a time machine and really kind of bring some of those folks. I mean, actually, those people, it's not like those people are dead. There's a lot of people who remember the days of George Bush. I would love to see the comparison made from, the criticisms of George Bush to the criticisms of Trump. And it's like, oh yeah, if do y'all really think Bush was that bad? Because there's somebody who's far worse. But yeah, the candidates weren't that bad. George Bush Sr., was not a crazy person. Ronald Reagan was an actor, but he still was sane. I mean, you had legitimate debate. Again, the issues were what people's proposals were. You weren't questioning whether they were unhinged or not, or whether they actually had ill intention. Again, you could disagree with somebody, but you didn't really think that people had ill intention. Maybe Nixon, but after him, I think most of the folks after him seemed to actually want to do good, and actually knew a little bit about what they were talking about. Again, you just had a disagreement on how they wanted to go about doing things. All right. I'm going to take a quick commercial break. Oh, before. Yes, man. Unhinged. Political G. I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will be right back. Looking for a way to rep logic and reason in style? Our brand new Logic and Reason hats are here. Comfortable, bold, and designed to turn heads. These hats are perfect for podcast fans who love to think critically while looking good. Grab yours today and join the conversation in style. Head over to logicandreason.com. Your favorite hat is waiting. All right. So in closing, guys, this election has brought, I would say, some of the worst in politics, at least what I've seen, the fake news, identity politics, all the different things. Republicans, I think, need to take some time, especially after this election. What I'm hoping is that Trump loses. I'm not really too, excited about a Harris presidency. But what I want the Republicans to do is to regroup. I think they need to figure out a way to distance themselves from Trump. And I don't think they're going to get that moment if Trump wins the presidency. And so I think they need a reset button. I think they need to reevaluate who they are, what they want to be. Because right now, the perception that you guys have is you're the party of racism. You're the party of, essentially white folks. And everybody who's not white or who's labeled as other, needs to go somewhere else, right? Anti-immigrant, anti-this, anti-that, and I think a lot of that has to do with Trump. I don't think that normal Republican people that at least that I talk to on the street have the same views as Trump. I think that the Trumper people, the super MAGA folks, are a minority. And normal sane people are just normal people who just happen to have more conservative political viewpoints. And so I think it would be a good opportunity for them to have a reset button. Eject yourself from Trump, start off with a clean slate, re-identify who you are, do a whole new rebrand, and just start over anew. And again, I don't think you guys will have that opportunity if Trump wins the election. As far as his indictments and all this other stuff, I could care less about that. Whether he served jail time or not is whatever. He has enough money to not serve jail time and maybe just, pay for a penalty or whatever the case may be. So, am I really going to see justice there? Probably not. But, yes, I do think you shouldn't use your campaign funds for illegal stuff or paying off hookers. I don't think that's a thing. Do I think it's as serious as the Democrats say it is? No, I don't think. I've seen on the local level, I see people get in trouble with that. And so it's not right, but is it as big of a deal as they're saying? No. But yes, I do think that y'all need to figure out a way to get away from Trump. And which is why I was so frustrated with y'all when you had a whole primary and you allowed this man to be your nominee. And I'm like, how does that even happen? He didn't even participate in the debates. There's some type of hold that he has on y'all that you need to break yourselves free from. Give us some good candidates. I would like to see a decent Republican candidate to really, challenge the Democratic Party so that the Democratic Party will come forward with a decent candidate as well. I would love a situation where we have to sit down and hash out between two really good candidates instead of this warped reality that we're in where they're both bad. Like, I don't want that reality. I want a different reality where both candidates are good and it's like, ooh, this one or this one? Which one? Like, I would rather have that. But yes, we covered a lot today. We covered not really a lot. We covered some decent topics. I know the Haitian immigrants, Harris and her identity, along with some of the other political stuff. These smoke screens do distract us from real issues. We spent so much time over the last several days. By we, I just mean the general discord on these topics and less on actual issues. I tried to steer that conversation a little bit towards the end of the live debate coverage, where I mentioned that, we did cover Trump's policies, but now I can't even take that seriously. Harris's policies now have been consistent as far as what she's been saying in speeches. But I think they need to be fleshed out. Oh, thanks, Broken Traditions. I do appreciate that. Oh.
You're listening to Logic and Reason, the podcast, where we don't just report on news and policy, we dissect it, challenge it, and bring you the insights that matter.
Thank you, Broken Traditions, for that. Yes, I did freeze. And so, yes, thank you for that. I was able to get it fixed. Hopefully it should be fixed at this point. I don't know if you guys heard the audio, but basically I was just saying, what I would like to see happen is I would like a reality where we have to choose between two really good candidates. And that's the more frustrating part, is just trying to decide between two really good options. And trying to flesh out. Yes. Yeah. Hey, this is a live show, man. You just kind of do what you can. All right. Appreciate it. You guys are telling me that I'm back. All right, good. Yeah. So that's ultimately what I want. I want a reality where, we have two really good candidates to choose from. And it's not a choice between the lesser of two evils, but more of like, which, the two greats and the best of the great, that would be a nice turnaround. I don't know how we get there from this current setup, but we do need to challenge. Oh, what is this? Mel saying, right? Yeah. Sorry, guys. The audio was good. All right, cool. I don't have to rehash myself then. Perfect. So I do want to give you guys a little sneak peek of what we're planning on doing for next week. I see some more stuff from the Diddy indictment. Broken Traditions did a really good episode tonight. So if you haven't already listened to his episode on this, go over to his YouTube channel. But what I'm hoping is there's some more court information. I've been looking forward to this, man. I've been looking so forward to this. I love to see things like this, where you have somebody who has been messing around for years and now is about to get his just desserts. I can't wait to dive into those court documents. It is one of my justice buttons to just see evil people or people who do evil things get served. And so the Cassie document that was released, I think it was last year, was very telling. The footage that came out with him in the hotel, all that stuff is now coming full circle. This man's over here trying to buy his way out of staying in jail. He offered the court $50 million. He's doing everything he can to not get that jumpsuit. If there's no issues with a live, hey, exactly. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing, how this develops. And we'll kind of do our little due diligence and kind of cover that next week. If you have other ideas for episodes, let us know. You can always send us an email. You can write in the comment section, just wherever way. We are all on social media. We have, an X account and IG, all those different things. We have community posts. So if you have any suggestions, we'll love to hear what you have to say on that. But Diddy is going to be something that we want to touch on. But that's what we got for tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining us live. I love the interaction from tonight. You guys have been great. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. That's a Mel note on that. Mel's always telling me you need to make sure you ask people to like and subscribe. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Big shout out to Mel. And we look forward to seeing Mel in some future episodes. I know she's had a little bit down of a couple of weeks, but I'm hoping that she can get back on the thing, because I enjoyed her little shorts. And so it's been really cool to watch. I'm Del. This is Logic and Reason, and y'all have a good night.